Welcome into Chicago Bears Now. I'm your host, Harrison Graham. Hope you guys are enjoying your Tuesday, just a couple of days away from the NFL Draft. And pretty recently, some Robert Quinn trade buzz. Let's get to that in just a second. Jason Leisure tweeted this out today because Quinn accepted his Piccolo Award today in Chicago, met the new staff, yada, yada, yada. Here's what he had to say, Quinn had to say per Leisure's tweet. Sucks to say, but I've been through many coaching changes in my career. The only thing I thought of was hopefully my resume or my production from last year gives me a little weight to keep my foot in the building. Quinn later added, I didn't expect to go anywhere or want to go anywhere, but again, this is a crazy business. So, a few hours later, Ian Rapoport responded with this. He quote tweeted that last tweet. Interesting. Robert Quinn was in Chicago meeting with the new staff and spending some time with Bears coach Matt Eberflus, but teams are sniffing around on him for a possible trade, one of several veteran names being discussed. Tried telling y'all for a couple months, don't rule out a Robert Quinn trade. We know Ryan Poles is willing to trade quality vets. He did that with Khalil Mack. Poles continues to talk about wanting to get more draft picks. And if a good trade is on the table for Robert Quinn, say second or third round pick, I think that's something he would heavily consider, and with a couple of days until the draft, we are certainly on a Robert Quinn trade watch. Will the Bears trade Robert Quinn? Predict it for us down in the comments. Type 1 for yes, or you can type 2 for no. Met with the media today, had his pre-draft press conference, and talked about a variety of topics earlier on Tuesday. Did mention trading back as a strong possibility to try and go get more draft picks. Obviously, you can't force a trade, but I think he's very interested in doing just that because the Bears only have 6 draft picks at this point in time, and of course, they don't have a first-round pick either, and I would not expect that to change. 2 round 2 picks, 39 and 48, a third-round pick at 71, pair of fifth-round picks, and then a sixth-round pick as well. Currently 6 picks. Ryan Poles probably hoping to acquire another top 100 pick, maybe an extra pick on day 3 as well. Here's what he had to say in expansion here. I do think we will be in the business, depending on where it is and what it looks like, in moving back and trying to create more draft capital. And look, that makes a lot of sense because Ryan Poles, at his core, believes in building through the draft. There is a good chance that he's going to try to trade down from number 39 or number 48 overall in the second round. Ideal scenario, you take the best player on your board at 39, trade down from 48, get an extra third back, and then you go from there. That would be a picture-perfect setup. Now, again, you can't force it. If you're sitting there at 48 and you can't find a trade partner, you're just going to have to make a pick. But I think ideally the Bears would like to go that route, so we'll certainly see if that works out for Poles. It's his first draft where he's completely in charge, so a lot of this he'll have to learn on the fly. All right, I want to know from you guys, do you want the Bears to trade down for more draft picks? Type me if you do in the comments. I know this has been popular among Bears fans. If you want Poles to trade back and get extra selections, type me down below in the comments section. A couple other notes from his press conference I wanted to bring up. Adam Hogue tweeted this out. Ryan Poles was asked if he was rebuilding because you guys have been asking me, is this a rebuild? Is this a tear down and start over? Well, hear from the man himself. Quote, the rebuilding thing is very, very sensitive. No, we're constructing a very good football team. He laughed and compared it to watching HGTV. Some rooms are good. Some rooms need work. That's not a rebuild. That's interesting. Because I think we've kind of wondered based on the offseason moves, the Bears view this as a full rebuild. But I think you hear from the man himself I think it's more of a retool, kind of a fix certain things. I think this should tell us all that the Bears are not punting on 2022. Now, are they going all in on 2022, like making reckless trades and trying to win 12 games this year? No, they're not doing that, but they're not entering the season like, well, we're going to win 5 games, and that's just how it's going to be, organically tanking. I don't think that's the approach here whatsoever. Also, this quote from Ryan Poles, Brad Biggs tweeted it out, quote, I truly believe in homegrown talent. Calls the cost of some wide receivers in trades and free agency, quote, crazy. So he's motivated to make the right move in the draft. He's also reiterated desire in trading down this week, like we already mentioned, as long as it gets to the right spot. So I think this mostly, the main takeaway from that is This puts to rest any major wide receiver trade. They're not going to trade for DK Metcalf, barring something unforeseen. Deebo Samuel, A.J. Brown, they're not going to be in the mix for those guys because, A, they don't have the draft capital to do it, and B, Ryan Poles doesn't want to hand down $25, $30 million per year on a receiver right now. And look, that's probably a good decision because he's going to have to pay Darnell Mooney soon, and he's probably going to cost $20+ million if he has another strong season in 2022. So I think we can put the idea of that pipe dream to rest at this point in time. Help us out, support the show here on YouTube and on Rumble because we have daily videos for free. The latest Bears news and rumors content, whatever's flying around this football team, I'm analyzing it, breaking it down for you guys. Audience interaction. I think we do this better than any other Chicago Bears channel on YouTube or on Rumble where we interact with you guys. We take your questions. We talk to you guys in the live chat during our weekly live shows as well. So smash that subscribe button on YouTube. Follow us on Rumble. Rumble.com/BearsNow is the place to follow us over there. We're closing in on 600 followers, so maybe you've already subbed on YouTube. I know a lot of you have. If you're like, hey, how else can I support? Follow us on Rumble. That really helps us grow and expand and do more videos just for you guys. All right, more of our Bears rumors roundup following the press conference from Ryan Poles. Could the Bears trade for Laviska Shenault, maybe even on draft night, or at least during the draft at some point? I'll go two smoking Jays. People are talking 50-50. I think it's a possibility. Maybe 50-50 is too high, but the point is it's at least a discussion point, I would say, at this point. Report coming out of Jacksonville that the Jags could be looking to move Shenault, which makes sense, right? They gave Christian Kirk a lot of money. Travis Etienne's coming back. He can do some of the things Shenault does as well as that Swiss Army knife. They also signed Zay Jones. They've invested a lot of money at the receiver position. So where does Shenault fit into all of that? Maybe he doesn't fit really at all for Jacksonville, and maybe they'll look to moving him. Bleacher Report took this report, basically said, look, the Bears make a lot of sense. Saying, quote, the Bears should stand at the front of the line. Thus, for this offseason, they haven't provided significant help for second-year quarterback Justin Fields. The Bears didn't check off a need at wide receiver with Byron Pringle. Chicago doesn't have a first-round pick, but it has 3 day 2 selections. While Poles could use one or more picks on a wideout to complement Darnell Mooney, Shenault would come in as a known commodity. At his young age, he's a better version of Pringle, who's at 6'1", 203 pounds with the ability to line up on the perimeter or in the slot. Let me first say this. I would not trade a day 2 pick for Laviska Shenault, and I'll disagree with Bleacher Report on this. I don't think we know if Shenault is a known commodity. I think we've seen his potential. I think he's done some good things. We'll look at his stats here in just a couple moments, but I wouldn't call him a known commodity. I think it's still very much unknown, really, what the ceiling of this player is. Now, that doesn't mean I'm not interested, but I'm not trading a second or third round pick. Day 3 pick, maybe even 2 day 3 picks, that is a different story. So what do you guys think? Should the Bears trade for Laviska Shenault, type T for trade, type P for pass? For the right price, I'm definitely interested. I think he can come in here and be a Swiss Army knife on offense and give you some big plays as a receiver, maybe as an occasional running back. But again, it's all going to come down to value. So T for trade or P for pass. You look at his first 2 years in the league for Laviska Shenault. 2020, 58 grabs on 79 targets, which is really good percentage. It's about 75%. Catch rate when he's targeted. 600 yards, 5 touchdowns. Nice rookie year, right? Last year, catching yardage pretty good too. 63 for 619, but didn't find the end zone. Now, rookie quarterback, Urban Meyer, that whole mess. I'm not going to put too much of that on Shenault, but you didn't see really that sophomore jump after a pretty promising rookie season. He also had 8 drops last year. That's been a bit of a problem for him early on in his career. But again, I still like the potential and the upside of Shenault, and especially when you factor in what the Bears currently have at receiver. You have a wide receiver 1-ish, 2. I'll call him a 1B, Darnell Mooney. I don't think he's one of these alpha males yet, but I think he could get there. Byron Pringle, I think, is more of a wide receiver 3. He's your 2 right now. I don't know if Chenault's the true 2 at this point, but he would certainly help, and he's definitely better than Equinemius St. Brown, Daz Newsome, some of these other guys. So to kind of put it all together here, my main thought on this is, number 1, I still like his potential. I think he can be a really good player in the NFL. Number 2, I am interested for the right price. Ryan Poles has made it clear he's not making crazy trades to give away capital. Would they take a 5th, Jacksonville? Top 150 pick? I would trade 148 for Laviska Shenault. I'm not trading 71 though. That's too expensive for a guy that only has 2 years left on his rookie contract. Also, want to remind you guys one more time to follow us on Rumble. We told you guys a second ago about it, but we're closing in on 600 followers. Rumble.com/Bears. Now we're at 569, 31 away from 600. Really help us out. Would love to get there before the NFL draft. And, just if you're looking for different ways to support me, support the show, just follow us over there. Just click the simple follow button. Nothing crazy, not asking the world of you guys. That would really go a long way in helping us grow this show. Next up on our Bears Rumors Roundup, are the Bears interested in drafting Alec Pierce, the receiver out of Cincinnati? I'm going to go 3 Smoking Jays. I think it's pretty likely that they are interested. Now, this means 3 Smoking Jays, pretty likely that they are intrigued, interested. Not that they're for sure going to get him. You can't say 3 or 4 Smoking Jays on any draft pick, especially when you don't have a first-round pick, because you don't know who's going to be available when you pick at the end of the day. Now, the report is out there that the Bears have interest in drafting Pierce in round 2 of the NFL draft. Number 48 overall was the pick that was rumored in this instance. I don't think they would trade him at 39. Tony Pauline of the Pro Football Network had this report and said this about Pierce. He tested incredibly well at the Combine, 4.4 140 with an insanely fast 10-yard split of 1.46 seconds. Only 2 receivers, Sky Moore, Tyquan Thornton, had faster 10-yard splits. His vertical jump of 40.5 inches was tops for the receiver group in Indianapolis. So those metrics are impressive in a strong receiver class. He also added this more in reference to the Bears and other teams. So who are the candidates for Pierce in round 2? Bears, pick 48, have shown a lot of interest in the wideout, as have the Packers at 53. Don't discount the Colts with the 42nd selection. Look, I'd be cool with Pierce at 48. I think 39 is a tick early, but 48, I think it's good value. 71, I think, is incredible value. If he's there in the 3rd round, I think it's a no-brainer. He would be at or near the top of my list of guys I would consider trading in the 3rd round of this draft. Really took a step forward this past year at Cincinnati. The big plays were there at 17 yards per catch on 52 grabs for almost 900 yards, 8 touchdowns. He can find the end zone. He can stretch the field. He can make contested catches. I think he's a damn good player. I think he has a chance to be a number 2 receiver in this league. I really, really do. And if you get that in the 2nd or 3rd round to complement Darnell Mooney, I think that's pretty good work for Ryan Poles. Who is your favorite day 2 wide receiver prospect? So don't say Chris Olave, Garrett Wilson, all these dudes that are going to go top 20. Day 2 guys. Don't even say necessarily Treylon Burks. Think George Pickens, Alec Pierce, Jalen Tolbert out of South Alabama, John Mechie, those type of players. Who is your favorite day 2 wide receiver prospect? Let's hear it from you guys. Want to know what Bears fans are thinking. All right, one more story here, a receiver-heavy show here. Are there concerns about George Pickens? 2 Smoking Jays, and I'm putting 2 because I'm not really sure how much we really know. You always get near the draft, and there's always either super positive or negative reports about certain guys. Remember last year, all the negative press on Justin Fields? Hey, he's the first one to leave practice, and then last year we find out none of it's true. So keep that in mind when you read some of these quotes. The Athletic put out an article, and they basically posed a question for some wide receiver coaches and scouts. Who's the biggest boom or bust prospect at the position? Here's number 1 scout here, George Pickens. He says, there's a lot of upside, but he can't get out of his own way. He's been enabled his whole life. What does that mean? It's kind of generic, but it's hard to say, right? Well, here's another one from a wide receiver coach in the National Football League. Pickens, you love his game, but there's some issues. Do you want to work with him? He's a top 6 talent-wise, but it's impossible not to add these other things. He has the size. He consistently beats press coverage. He has good start stops with some AI, Allen Iverson crossover in his game, but I wouldn't touch him. And then one more receiver coach here. On tape, he is probably a top 5 receiver, but there's just so many red flags, and they're big red flags. He's got a lot of growing up to do. If he goes to the right place with a room full of veterans to help him go the right way, I think he'll have a chance. It's hard to know what to make of this because there's a lot of he's got red flags, and then they don't say what the red flags are, right? Like, if he gets in a room with veterans, he'll have a chance. So, is he a bad teammate? Does he have poor work ethic? Does he have a bad attitude? I mean, is it like Kadarius Toney vibes where he just doesn't care? I mean, I don't know. It feels very, very unspecific to me. And, I think that's where Ryan Poles, Ian Cunningham, these scouts for the Bears, they have to do their due diligence. They have to do their homework and say, hey, we're comfortable with drafting this player. We think he will fit in to our culture and to our environment, because this is a critical draft for culture alone. You're implementing your culture. This is a new head coach, new front office, new GM. You got to get guys that you think can help the team win, but also that just fit in to what type of building you want to be running. So these things are very important to set the tone in draft number 1 if you are Ryan Poles. Do these quotes concern you enough to not draft George Pickens? Type Y for yes, type N for no. I would say no, just because I think it's too vague. I would want to know more. But, I mean, again, like I just said, that's where the Bears staff has to do their job and do some digging and figure out what's true and what isn't. It's conflicting. It definitely is, because I love the player. I think George Pickens, I've said this for a couple months, I think for a guy that'll probably go in the second round, he has wide receiver 1 potential. He could be a number 1 receiver on a team in this league. He's got that upside. He gets separation pretty consistently. He beats press coverage, like that receiver coach said. But you factor in whatever these, vague red flags are with, some legitimate concerns of injuries that he's had in his college career. Torn ACL led to him only playing in 35 pass snaps this season. So you got to factor all of that stuff in. I will say this wide receiver class is deep. It's fascinating. I have no idea where certain guys are going to go. This whole draft is true, not just at receiver, where scouts, we're 2 days from the draft. We don't even know who's going number 1 at this point, which is very, very interesting. But at receiver, like Christian Watson may go round 1. George Pickens might. Someone's going to drop, though. One of these guys is going to be available for the Bears in the second round. So I'm curious to see who that person is. Maybe Pickens drops because of these reports, and the Bears are able to take advantage and draft him if they are comfortable with the player. So pick a receiver. We just talked about 2 of the guys in the draft that could be available at a similar range. I think Pickens' ceiling is higher. Type GP for George Pickens. Type AP for Alec Pierce. The better question might be Pickens at 39 or Pierce at 48. What would you rather do? That'd be a little trickier, in my opinion. If it's just the player himself, I'd lean Pickens, but I do love me some Alec Pierce. Speaking of the draft, we will be live for all 7 rounds starting on Thursday night with round 1. You'll see me over there quite a bit on night 1 since the Bears don't have a first-round pick. So come join us, have some fun, youtube.com/chatsportstv. We'll also be live on Friday and Saturday with rounds 2 through 7 as well.